Assalamualaikum. Hi everyone. So today we are going to continue with our next chapter on report writing. Okay, so let's start. So first thing first, let's look at the steps in writing a report. Okay, we will start with the first step, which is choose a topic. All right, so you choose a topic on what you want to do for your study or for your research, and then after that you will have to write the objectives of the study. Okay, after you have decided on the objectives of the study, you will have to do some reading. Okay, and then you will have to review the related literature, okay, depending on the topic that you have chosen. Okay, after that you will have to decide on your working schedule. So you need to plan on how, when, where, okay, for the whole project to be completed. All right, after that you will have to decide on a research tool. So what is a research tool? If you still remember, a research tool is for you to decide on how you're going to collect the data, how you're going to analyze the data. So that is the research tool. All right. Then you will have to collect the data. So once you have decided on the instrument you want to use, who you are going to distribute the questionnaire to, okay, you will have to collect your data. And then after that, you will have to analyze and interpret the collected data. Okay, next, step 8. Okay, you need to draw the conclusion based on the data which you have already analyzed earlier. After that, you will have to state the implication based on the conclusion you have made and make recommendations so that the problems in which you have identified, okay, when you are doing this study can be solved. Right? Then, after you have finished writing up the main content of your study, okay, you have to write the references list, okay, for any resources which you have referred to, okay, right, and then write acknowledgements, prepare the table of contents, and then you prepare all the list, okay, such as list of tables, list of figures, list of abbreviations, list of symbols, and list of appendices. Okay, so once you are done with all the list and the content, okay, the final step, which is very crucial for you to do in order for your report to be almost perfect, should I say perfect, or good enough to be published, is to always revise, edit, proofread, and then only you can submit your report to your supervisor or your lecturer. Okay, so these are the steps in writing a report, especially your final year report, your thesis, your dissertation, and whatnot. Anything related to a research or a study. All right? Okay. So now let's talk about the structure of the report. So for the structure of the report, there are 3 sections. Okay, 3 sections in a report. Namely, the first one which you will see in a report is the preliminary section. So in the preliminary section, you will have this. Okay, you will have this. Okay, the title page, the table of contents, list of figures, list of tables, list of abbreviation, list of symbols, and finally, the list of appendices. Okay, right? So this is the first thing you will see in your study report. After that, you will see the main section. So in the main section, you will see all the chapters of your study. So we'll start with abstract. So start with abstract, followed by chapter 1, introduction, chapter 2, literature review, chapter 3, methodology, Chapter 4, findings and discussion. And finally, Chapter 5, conclusions and recommendation. Okay, after the main section, you will have to prepare the supplementary section. So in the supplementary section, you will have the references list and also the appendices. Okay, so we are done with the structure of the report. Okay, next we will look at the main section. So the reason why I'm going to explain about the main section is because the main section is the part in which you will have to write first before you start writing the preliminary section and the supplementary section. Okay, so let's start with the first thing to write in the main section. Okay, so first thing first you have to write is an abstract. Alright, so what is an abstract? Okay, by definition, it is a description of the problem or opportunity highlighted in the study, the purpose of the report, and the importance of the study for your target audience. So basically, the abstract contains a summary of what the whole report is about. So you have 5 chapters, right? So the content of the 5 chapters are compacted together and put into an abstract. Okay, all right. Then an abstract is written after you have written the content from chapter 1 until chapter 5. Once you have come up with everything, then only you write your abstract. Okay, and why abstract is important? An abstract is important so that the readers who are going to read your study, the whole report, the report is long, right? So if they want to see that the report is important, okay, or not, related or not with the thing that they want to do in their own study, so they have to read the abstract. So once they finish reading the abstract, they will decide whether they want to continue reading the report, your report, or just leave it alone. Okay? All right. So in the abstract, what do you need to have? So in the abstract, you need to answer all these questions which you are now seeing on your screen. Okay? First, the introduction. Why was the study conducted? Okay, so basically the purpose. All right, and then what was done is basically the objectives of the study. How was it done is basically the methodology. Okay, all right, and then, okay, let me write here. So this, as I said just now, the purpose. This is the objective of the study, and this is the methodology. Okay, all right. Next, in the body, what was found is basically the findings. And what was the most important result is basically the conclusion. All right, for the closure, okay, you can see what can be concluded. Okay, so here is the implication based on the study or recommendations. Okay, the implication or the recommendation. So all of this need to be written in an abstract. So for the abstract, you don't need to write it long actually. It just consists of one paragraph of 100 to 150 words. That will be all. Okay, and as I said earlier, it can only be written after you have finished writing up the whole report. Okay, clear? Right, now let's move on to the next part. Okay, introduction. So this is the first chapter you will see in the main section. So chapter 1 is introduction. Introduction, chapter 1. So for example, in a report, you will see, okay, something like this. Chapter 1. Okay, introduction. Okay, see that? Right? So in the first chapter or introduction, okay, these are the components you will have to produce. The background of the study, the statement of problem, the purpose of the study, the objective or the objectives of the study, and finally the significance of the study. Okay, so all of these are usually written in present tense. Okay, except for the objective of the study. Except for the objective of the study, since the study is already completed, we'll have to write it in past tense. Okay, clear? Alright, now let's move on to the next part here. Methodology. Okay, alright. Why am I leaving out chapter 2? So in a research, chapter 2 is supposed to be literature review. Okay, chapter 2 is supposed to be the literature review. Okay, I'll show you what a literature review look like. Okay, alright, so this is what a literature review probably will look like in your work. Alright, so a literature review is actually a collection of work. A collection of work or previous studies. Okay, you compile them, you compact them, and then put it in a chapter. Anything related to your study or to your topic. So in this chapter, all right, you will start writing from the most general, okay, the most general information, for example, definition, like this one, importance, very general, to the most specific, okay, information about your topic. Okay, more specific. Okay, I'll show you a snippet of what a literature review look like here. So basically, since it's a compilation of what you are talking about, okay, anything related to your topic, so basically you are just summarizing or paraphrasing, okay, the studies conducted by other researchers. Okay, for example, like this one here, summarize about the importance of handphone here. Okay, you can see quotation. All right. Okay, and then that's all. Okay, just a snippet of here. So basically this, right? So let's go back to chapter 3. Okay, so chapter 3 is methodology. Okay, chapter 3 is methodology. So in the methodology, okay, the elements in which you will have to include will be, for example, a bit of introduction on the research again, so that people will know what your research is about and be reminded of it. Okay, And then the location of the data collection, the population or sample, or we call it as the respondents of the study, the data collection method, and also the data analysis method. Okay, right? So the components basically, okay, introduction, okay, respondents of the study. So here you talk about the population and also sample. All right, research instrument, okay, the item or the instrument you use to collect the data. Okay, so if you use any of these, okay, you talk about it here in the research instrument. So if you use one, then you talk about one. If you use two or more, then you talk about both here. All right, after that, the data collection procedure. How did you collect the data? And the data analysis procedure. How did you analyze the data? So here everything must be explained in detail. All right. Okay. All right. Okay. So in the methodology, you have to write in past tense. Why? Because the process is already done. Okay. It's already over. That's why you must write the methodology part in past tense. Okay? Clear? Now let's move on. Next page. Okay, next is chapter 4. Right? Chapter 4. Findings and discussion. Okay, so for findings is the part in which you write the analysis. Okay, remember last time, okay, we learned about how to analyze qualitative, okay, qualitative and also quantitative data, correct? Sorry. Okay, so the analysis, okay, in paragraph form, for every question, in your questionnaire, in your interview, in your observation, you have to put it in the findings part. So basically here, okay, in the finding, all right, we will deal with facts, data, and responses from the respondents. All right. And then you will see visuals, okay? You will see tables, charts, graph, and so on. Okay, and every visuals you have must be followed by explanation in the paragraph. Okay, so for findings, all right, if you still remember, you need to write it in past tense. Okay, clear? All right, now let's move on. Okay, discussion. So for discussion, okay, in findings and discussion, this is the second part in this chapter in which here you will write your analysis. Okay, all right, your what we call it, your discussion, basically, of course, your understanding, okay, your argument, explanation, okay, based on the data or your findings, okay, to find the answer for your objective. Okay, to find the answer for your objective. Okay, all right. Here, what you will write in this part is basically according to your objective. Okay, so if you have two objective, then your headings must be one for objective 1 and 2 for objective 2. So basically here you will write about your discussion, your understanding, as I said just now, on the findings according to the objective. I'll show you a sample after this. Okay? Right, so the elements here, what you will have to write. So basically, okay, the causes. Okay? Alright, the characteristics, the factors, relationship, the importance. Okay? Okay? And then how it will contribute to your understanding of the study, depending on the objectives of the study. Okay. Alright, so in the discussion, you will basically talk in many ways. Okay, how you are going to write the discussion will be vary. It depends on what you are going to talk about, and it again, as I said, depending on your objectives of the study. So you can basically explain the results. Okay, you can compare the findings, you can evaluate the findings, or you can infer the findings. Okay, infer here within, you can use the data within your data findings, or with other studies. Okay, I'll show you the example with sample. Okay? Alright, now let's look at how you can write your discussion part. Okay, this is not compulsory. Alright, when you look here, it doesn't mean that you have to write every single thing here. It's just an example of how you can write your paragraph. For example, like this one. This is one way for you to write your paragraph. Sorry, I use red pen here to make it easier for you to see. Okay, right, for example, you explain the results. Okay, based on figure 3. So in the discussion, you cannot directly take the data from the findings. So in the findings, you explain the numbers as you can see it. But for the discussion, you cannot do that. Okay, you cannot do that. For the discussion, for example, if you see 98% from this table or from this figure, you have to convert this into words. So 98% is equal to most. Or you can use other word like almost. Okay, almost all respondents. Okay, right. So you have to convert this number into words. Okay, right? That is how you're going to write. So for example, like this. Okay, based on figure 3, the results clearly show that most of the students who took part in the survey preferred prepaid plan. Only small fraction use postpaid plan as opposed to those who use prepaid plan. So from here you can see they exchange numbers, okay, with words. Right, do you understand? Okay, let's continue. The results were anticipated. So here you are trying to explain why is this happening? Okay, all right, why is this happening? The results were anticipated. You can see past tense here because you are talking about the data, the past data. All right, so you want to make sense of why is this happening? Why is this small fraction? Okay, most. You want to make sense of this. So you explain, okay, why? Because the respondents were all students. Okay, all right. And then they are not from wealthy family. So they simply could not afford postpaid plan. So you want to explain the situation. If this happened, why? If this happened, why? All right. So that's what it means by explaining the result of finding of the research. This is one way of doing the discussion part. Okay, another way to do it, okay, let's say we look at comparing the findings. Okay, for example, you can compare the findings with other study. Okay, like this one. Okay, it can be summarized as SMS, the most popular means. Okay, alright, similar to the findings, okay, conducted by Param et al. From University Teknologi Malaysia Barat. Okay, saying that SMS was the primary reason why students own a handset. Okay, so this, okay, cross-reference, okay, to other research or other study. So you can compare the finding in this way, okay, or you compare the findings with whatever you have in your data. Okay. Next, another way is to evaluate. You can make an evaluation like this one. Okay, base and make sure when you make an evaluation or explanation, everything must be logical. Logic, your argument, your explanation must be logical. Okay. Right. Next. Or you can make inference. Okay, you can make inference like this one. This happened because of this. Okay, so this is how you can make inference based on the situation. And again, as I said, logical. Okay, yeah, let's move on. Okay, so I'll just repeat on what you should write for the findings part here. So you have here a table. So this is a table. So make sure when you have a table, okay, label it in bold like this. Give a number. Okay, for numbering, chapter plus when. Which number? When did you see this? When do you see this table? Okay, and then name this. Give it a title. Okay, right, and then you have the table here. Okay, right. After that, write the explanation in paragraph. So again, as I mentioned, it must be in past tense. Okay, it must be in past tense. Alright, okay. So for example, like this, table 1, okay, because you are referring to this, shows that it is still in present tense because this table is current. Okay, that 8 students, okay, 8 students use, okay, past tense, the prepaid HP service plan, while another 6 students used the postpaid HP service plan. Okay, all right. After the word shows that, okay, after the word shows that, everything must be in past tense. It can be shows that, refer that, okay, as long as you have this, okay, you have this first, like this, referring to this, it must be in present tense, and then after that, it will be in past tense. Okay, right, next. Okay, this is another table, right? You can see that. And how you should explain it. Right. When you explain, only talk about what you can see from the graphic or from the visuals. Do not talk about your opinion in the findings part. The findings can only talk about whatever you can see on the visuals. When you start trying to talk about your opinions and whatnot, it must be under the headings of discussions. Okay, so let's talk about discussion. So for the discussion, as I said just now, okay, it will include your opinions. Okay, it must be logical. You can combine ideas from your findings, your own findings, or from other studies. Okay, all right, as I mentioned just now. Okay, so for discussion, how you should write it. Okay, all right, so for the discussion, for example, just now, okay, so for example, like this one, 3.2 discussion. Okay, let me change the pen color. Okay, discussion. Okay, 3.21, objective 1 or research objective 1. Okay, I know in your objective you will have to identify and whatnot, so change it into headings like this one, identifying the problems among UTHM lecturers in dealing with technology during online classes. Okay, so what you put here is mainly your opinion, your ideas, your arguments, your discussion, as I said, okay, about this objective only. Okay, so you write everything to get the answer here. So how are you going to write this? So for example, here problems. In the findings earlier, you list down there are 6 problems. And then from this 6, you list down according to ranking. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, once you finish ranking the problem, okay, then you discuss about it. 1 for paragraph 1, 2 for paragraph 2, 3 paragraph 3, 4 paragraph 4, 5 paragraph 5, 6 paragraph 6. So you need to explain it. Okay, like this one, the first one here is talking about the first problem. Okay, then that's it. This is just it. One problem maybe. And this one just suggesting way. Okay, only one way here. Okay, I'll show you another example. Okay, now let's try to look at this sample. As I said, the sample may not be a good sample, so look at which one is good, you follow. Which one is not good, you do not follow. Okay, so like this. Okay, let me have a pen. Okay, search objective 1. Okay, right, maybe you write here finding out whether the students spend their time to do fitness activities. Okay, so like this one, this group here discuss according to question. This is not what I want actually. This is not really what I want. So what you need to do is basically the one that I have shown to you earlier just now. So you discuss according to, okay, whether students spend time on to do the fitness or not. The answer is yes or no. Okay, if you say yes, why? No, why? Explain it, okay, based on the data. Okay, all right. Okay, and then like this one, there's no conclusion, no conclusion down here mentioning whether the answer is yes or no. Okay, so basically this is how you need to discuss your objective. Okay, right, now let's move on. to the next part. Okay. Conclusion and recommendation. Okay, conclusion and recommendation. So this is chapter 5. Once you have done discussing, okay, then you need to come up with conclusions and recommendation. So in chapter 5, there are 2 headings you have to complete. One, of course, the conclusion, and another one, of course, is the recommendation. So this whole chapter, okay, is a kind of a summary of what the whole study is about. Okay, all right, and basically you will see the follow-ups action, okay, in the recommendation part. Okay. So when you want to write all this, okay, you have to make sure that before you can write recommendation, you need to have your conclusion. Before you can write your conclusion, you need to have a discussion. So in order for you to write the conclusion, the discussion will help you to write the conclusion, and the conclusion will help you to prepare your recommendation. This is how you write. Okay, there's no such thing as reverse engineering in the study. Okay, right. So for the conclusion part, these are the elements you need to come up with. Okay, these are the elements you need to come up with. Okay, the overview of the study, the restatement of objectives, review of findings, implications of the findings, and lastly, limitation of the study. All of this need to be written in one paragraph. Okay, one paragraph. Okay, and you have to write it depending on sections. Okay, present tense. Okay, or sometimes past tense. I'll show you when and how you should write it in the tenses here. Okay, right. So the first thing you have to write is the overview of the study. Okay, so for the overview of the study, okay, you will see a brief summary of it. Okay, a brief summary of your study. So basically, you will see why and how you're conducting the study. Okay, I'll show you the sample after this, okay? Right, after that, we'll have the restatement of objective. So here, for example, if you have 2 objectives, okay, in chapter 1, you have it separately, right? Number 1, number 2. So here, you put everything in one sentence. Okay, right. Next, you will have the review of findings. So in the review of findings, you will choose major findings. Okay, major. So the major one is the most important one. All right. Okay, so for example, you have 2 objectives. At least you have 2 review of findings. Okay, how you write it, you can have it in point form, okay, or you can have it in paragraph form. Okay, this is how you can write the sentence. Okay, next, the implication of the finding. Implication is your deduction, okay, or conclusion, okay, based on your findings. Alright, which will later help you in making the recommendation. Okay, right, this is how you can start your implication. Okay, and finally, limitations of the study, which explain the weaknesses you have identified in the study, maybe in terms of your sample size, your research instrument, and the limited time for you to conduct the study. There are also other reasons, but basically you just need to write 1 or 2 here in this part. Okay, all right, now let's look at a sample. Okay, all right, let's look at the sample here. Okay, this one is the paragraph form. Okay, and this one is in the point form. Basically, what differentiate the paragraph form and the point form is just in the review of findings. Okay, the rest, the other elements remain the same. Okay, let's talk about how you should write. Okay, overview of the study. Okay, for overview of the study, okay, all right, you will have the purpose of the study here and the methodology here. And for this part, you have to use past tense. Okay, next, you will have the restatement of objectives. Okay, this is the part which you have to write the restatement of objective. Okay, and you have to use past tense. Okay, clear? Right, so from here you can see there are 3 objectives. 1, service provider. 2, plans. And 3, peripherals. Okay. Right. Now, for review of findings, there are 2 ways you can write it. This one is in the paragraph form. Okay, so in the paragraph form, you will write it like this. Okay, 1 paragraph, talk about all of this. Okay, and each of this here is to answer each of the objective just now. Just now you have 3 objective. So this is 1. This is for 2. And this is for 3. Okay, right? Same goes when you write it in point form like this. Okay, but this one is clearer lah. Okay, it's clearer. Alright. Okay, the following conclusion can be drawn based on the findings of the study. So this is for objective 1. This is for objective 2. And this is the answer for objective 3. Okay. And this is the least important information. Okay, which actually, if it is not provided here, it is still okay. Alright, clear? Now let's move on to implication. Okay, for implication of the findings, as I said just now, based on the conclusion over here, up here, okay, you will deduce. Okay, you will deduce a conclusion. Okay, so for example like this, the result of the study indicate that cost and network coverage are, okay, 2 important factors that will influence students' choice in selecting handphone, service provider, plan, and peripherals. So this is the implication of the findings, your final conclusion. Your final conclusion or final decision. And as you can see, from past tense before this, now turns to present tense. Okay? I forgot this. For review of findings, you need to write it in present tense. Okay? Alright. Last but not least, limitation of the research. So for the limitation of the research, okay, it starts from here until here. So you list down the limitation which can actually affect the outcome of the study. So for example like this, however, these findings are only true, okay, present tense, for Kejora University College students and cannot be generalized to other university students. Okay, so you give recommendation here. Okay, the same study needs to be conducted from other universities to see if there are any similarities to factors that will influence students' choice in selecting handphone service provider, plan, and peripherals. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the next part, the recommendation. Before we talk about the recommendation, let's talk about the do's and don'ts when writing up the conclusion. Okay, when you draw the conclusion, just focus on the major issues. Okay, use discourse markers, right? And the verb tense must be based on the statement that you are going to write. Okay. And for the don'ts, make sure you do not introduce new ideas or facts. Do not talk about the minor results, right? Do not exaggerate the findings, the conclusion, the final conclusion, the implication. Okay? Right? And then, of course, do not generalize your findings. Okay, for example, all UTHM students have Facebook account. Okay, all Malaysians have YouTube account, for example. All right, and do not apologize. Okay, by saying that I'm not an expert, so the finding might not be good enough in your limitation, for it especially. Okay, do not say it like that. All right. Okay. For recommendations, okay, basically it is a part in which you have to give suggestions or actions to be taken based on the findings. Alright, and it's written according to importance. So how do you know which one is important? So just follow the objectives of the study. Okay, right. Okay, this is how you can write your recommendation. Okay, there are two types of recommendation in which you have to write. Okay, so before we talk about the language function, let's look at the sample. Okay, now from the sample, as you can see here, as I said earlier, there are two types of recommendation. So this is the first one you have to write, recommendation based on findings. And the next one is recommendation for future research. Okay, all right. So recommendation based on findings, okay, is the suggestion you make, okay, the suggestion you make for each objective or each conclusion or each major findings you have identified. For example, just now you identify that Cymax is the best service provider, so you give suggestion. Second objective, you give suggestion. Third objective, you give suggestion. You can have more, of course, but always highlight according to the objectives of the study. Okay, so for recommendation for future research, okay, you probably would like to recommend what other research can do to add on the knowledge for your study here. For example, okay, since this study only focus on KUC students, the further study need to be conducted in other universities. Okay, and you can also look at the effects of using handphone, okay, on people's health. So actually, if you guys do not know what you want to do for your final year project, right, your FYP, you can go to the library, okay, look at your seniors' work, and straight away go to chapter 5 and look at this part. You can get the ideas, okay, on what you can do for your study. Okay, clear? Alright, now let's move on to the next part. Okay, Let's talk about the language functions. This part, I think I have highlighted this. So I will just recap. Okay, for introduction, as I said just now, present tense. Okay, and if you are referring to other research, you use past tense. Okay, right? Then for methodology, okay, you will use reported speech and of course past tense. Okay, next. Okay, for example, like this one, was conducted, randomly selected, began, were analyzed. Okay, all these are in past tense. Okay, next, findings and discussion. Okay, most, as I said, usually for findings, you will use past tense. For discussion, you will use present tense, except when you are referring to past finding. Okay, if you have numbers, okay, let's change the pen color. Okay, if you have numbers, okay, like this one, 12%, number 12. So if it is in the middle of a sentence, please prepare, you do not need to spell it out. Just use the number as it is. If it's 12, 12. If it is 13, 13, 13. 30, 30. Okay, if it is at the beginning of a sentence, please spell it out. Okay, 13. Okay, right. Okay. Then, as I said just now, in findings, mostly in past tense, discussion, mostly in present tense. Okay. For conclusion and recommendation, okay, basically, as I said, depending on the parts, okay, some in the conclusion will be using present tense, some will be using past tense. But for recommendation, you will use passive voice because you are giving suggestion. So the language, okay, you use the word ought to, must be done, should be done, and whatnot. Okay? Right. We are done with the main section. Now let's talk about the preliminary section. Okay, so for the preliminary section, you will have the title page. Okay, you will have the complete title of the study, full details of the researchers, and the date in which the report is submitted. Okay, now let's look at the sample. Okay, here is the title of your study. Okay, this is your name. Okay, this is the date of your submission. All right, now let's move on to the next part. Table of contents. For table of content, it is basically to show the structure of the report and to make sure that the readers can locate the information easily. Okay, so let's look at the sample. Okay, if you look at the sample here, okay, we'll start with the title or the heading in the middle of the page, and then you'll start with the preliminary section, knowledge, acknowledgement, abstract, table of content, list of tables, figures, abbreviation, appendices. You can see the pages number in what we call it, Roman numbers. Okay, then we will have the chapter. Okay, this is chapter 1. Okay, these are the contents. Okay, and then chapter 2. Okay, okay, and then this is chapter 3, right? And this is chapter 4. Okay, and then chapter 5. After chapter 5, we'll straight away talk about the supplementary, okay, section, okay, the references list and the appendices. Okay, right. Now let's move on to the next part. The next part is the list of table and the list of figures. So if you have both figures and tables, you have to separate the list. One is list of figures and another one is list of tables. Okay, make sure you have the headings, the numbers, the title, and the matching page numbers. I'll show you the example. So this one here is a list of figure. So if you have a table, you will need to have a list of tables. Okay, now so I just show you an example if you have figures. So if you have figures like this, okay, make sure you have the figure number, the title, and the page. Okay, right. So for example, okay, here the figure number 4.1. What does it mean here? Okay, it means, okay, 4 means this figure is in chapter 4 and this is the first in the chapter. So if the figure is in chapter 3, you'll have to write it 3 dot, and if it is, for example, number 10th, you will see it as number 10th, okay, 3.10. That will be the figure number. So this is the title and then the page. Okay, same goes if you have tables. If you have tables, it will be list of tables. This one will turn into table number, but the rest remain the same. So for table, it will restart. Okay, for figure 4.1, so for table, for example, is in chapter 4, it will, and the first table, 4.1. That is how you write. Okay? Right. Let's continue with the next part. Okay, the next part is list of abbreviation. So for abbreviation, okay, you may have acronyms, okay, or short forms of things. So make sure that you sort it according to alphabetical order and then make a list for this. I'll show you an example, okay? For example, you have this. This is the heading. Okay, you have the heading. All right. And then this is the acronym. And this is the full name. You just write it like this and you arrange it, rearrange it, okay, according to alphabetical order. All right. Okay, this is for list of abbreviation. Next, let's talk about the supplementary section. Okay, the first one is the references list. So in the references list, you will list down the materials you refer to, okay, and you have to arrange it in alphabetical order. I'll show you the sample after this. Okay, for example, okay, so here you have the title or the heading, references. Okay, so as I said, it must be arranged according to alphabetical order. Okay, so you have to follow APA format. Okay, APA format. Okay, this is the alignment. Alignment. Okay, so the first line must be in the same alignment. Okay, but second and third line, you tap it once. That is the easiest way. tap it once like this. Okay, so this is the format. So follow APA. Make sure it is written in alphabetical order and make sure that you follow this. Okay, right? So that is for the references list. Now, next. Okay, next, the appendices. For the appendices, it is the part in which you put the attachment. The attachment, which is actually very big, very detailed, very technical, so you cannot put it in the report. It will be too long. For example, your questionnaire, your transcript, the picture. Okay, so you put it in the appendices. So your appendix must be numbered. Remember that. Okay, so how? Okay, let me show you how you number your appendices. Okay, so for example, this is actually the list of appendices. Okay, but you can have it at the end. Okay, or if it is in the beginning, okay, you write the list of appendices, and at the beginning you need to have the page number. Okay, but at the end, after the references list, you don't need this, you just write it like this. Okay, so appendix A, questionnaire. Okay, put questionnaire. Okay, paging is the number starting right after the references list finished. Okay, so for example, like this one. Okay, so one is for your questionnaire, and then next one is your interview transcript, your brochure, your work schedule, your sample of responses maybe, okay, or maybe raw data. Okay, you can include them in the appendices. Now let's move on to the next part. Okay, all right. Before we move on to finish this session, okay, let's talk about this. How you're going to write. What are the contents you should have in your final report? Okay, so for your assignment, okay, for your assignment, I will only choose some of what you should have for your FYP. Like for this one here, this is for your FYP or your thesis. Yes, you will follow all of this here. But for your assignment, listen carefully. The things you should have in your report. Okay? Alright. First, of course, I need the title page. Next, you can have the acknowledgement, abstract, table of contents. Okay, all right, all of this list, if you have any, you put it there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, right? Then, okay, for chapter 1, introduction, okay, 6. Okay, what I need is background, statement, objectives, okay, significance. Only this. Okay, all right. Chapter 2, I don't need it. Okay, so your chapter 2 will be your methodology. So this is number 7. Okay, all right. What I need here is straight away going to respondents, research instrument, data collection procedure, data analysis procedure. And then number 8, findings and discussion. Go straight away to your findings and then explain your findings. Okay, if you have 10 questions, I expect to see at least 10 paragraph. 10 paragraph. and 10 graphics or explanation, depending on the types of data. Okay, and then I would like to see the discussion. Of course, if you have two, make sure you have two objective. Okay, if you have three, three. If you have one, one. Okay, right. And then number 9, I expect to see conclusions, of course, recommendation, both of this. Okay, then I would like to see your references list, number 10, and 11, your appendices. Want to see your questionnaire, and I would like to see samples of responses from your respondents. Okay, so all these need to be included in your report, final report. Okay, all right, I will later put this up on Edmodo. Okay, I'll put it on Edmodo. Okay, you can refer to the sample. Okay, pick and choose, especially for this and this. Follow my instruction just now, my lecture just now. The one which is okay, you follow. The one which is not okay, do not follow. You determine, okay, what is good and what is not good. Okay, right? The one which is good, you follow. The one which is not good, please do not follow. Okay?